Um, is the co-host Fausto? Hello? Uh, hey guys. Hey everyone who's joined in. We're going to go through some of the new highlights and presentation and updates that we had in the last month here. But I'll wait for 2 minutes before we start and let people come in. All right. Super cool. We have a bunch of people joining. I can see about 100 people. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined in. If you haven't heard me speak before, my name's Richie. I'm one of the co-founders at PriceLabs. And I also have Pedro, who's joined me here. Pedro is one of our oldest colleagues, or oldest not by age, oldest in terms of how long he's been with PriceLabs. And he looks after the data science here at PriceLabs. And some of the feature updates that we had here in January, Fausto played a Pedro played a very, very important role in building those out. And so wanted to have him here and have him talk about the updates. Super cool. With that, I think we've settled in, although we're 2 minutes late. I still see some people coming in. I think I'll just start because we only have 30 minutes. It's tight. We'll try to take questions, but if not, do put them in. We'll try to take questions as many as possible. And if we can't respond to you now, we'll try to respond to you one-on-one. We are also recording this session, and we will be putting it on our YouTube channel after we're done today. Super cool. With that, let me kick this off. The way we're going to do this today, and Pedro, can you confirm if you see my presentation screen, or do you see my presentation screen? Okay, good. Cool. So the way we're going to run this today is we're just going to take, I'm going to quickly walk you through four updates that we had, four major updates that we had in the last month. And then we're going to dive into each of those updates, and I'll have Pedro walk you through each of those updates, and I may have questions for him as he's walking through those. Pedro, that sounds good?
It does,
cool.
Yep.
All right, and you have your, you're logged into your PriceLabs account, right, Pedro? So that you can share, or do you want me to share?
I am logged in.
Okay, cool. All right, you would have received these updates, by the way, already via our email and via a notification within the app, but still wanted to quickly cover those. In terms of four big things that came out, and there are several tweaks that keep happening within the product, but the four big things that came out is number one, we launched and updated our base price tool. Base price is very central to how pricing works in PriceLabs, right? We found that we really needed to improve on how base price was happening. There's a lot coming in the future as well around it, but we'll chat a little bit about what's changed in base price tool and various ways you can use it. Second thing that we're going to talk about is some customizations that we have rolled out in dynamic pricing. Again, one of the things that we really want to do in PriceLabs is, while we automate as much as algorithm, we also want to give you the ability to customize it and tweak it to how you want to use it. And that's where customizations come in. And so we've launched some customizations. group level occupancies and exporting PDFs. A little bit of a niche requirement, but we're going to touch on it depending on your scale or your needs. You may find them useful as we go about it. But first up, base price help. As you guys know, and I'm assuming everyone on this call has already set up a base price for their properties. If you have not set up a base price, I would highly recommend go checking out the base price help tool and using it to set up your properties. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what's recommended, what's market based, and what's custom when we get to Pedro's side of this. But high level, there's a new tool that's come in that can help you determine the base price for your listing. Market based is fairly straightforward. You can say what quality of a listing do you have and what kind of listings do you want to compare, what bedroom size listings do you want to compare against. We'll show you what that area's average price is, but we will also allow you to, like as you see in this GIF, we'll allow you to draw a circle around certain neighborhood to be able to say, I just want to look at my base price according to that area. Then comes recommended. Recommended is when you import a listing, PriceLabs picks based on whatever you already had and your performance. And Pedro will clarify a lot more of that. But what Pedro and Pedro's team has done is they've built an engine around this so that over time, as you continue to use PriceLabs, they get better at predicting how well your current base price is doing. And so they start giving you tweaks around how to adjust that. And then custom is just obvious. You can put in your own base price. And then what Pedro's team has also done is added a nice little seasonality graph under it to show you when you use a base price, what does that mean across the year, what that price looks like. Customizations, we've added 2 customizations, demand factor, which again, Pedro will get into why that matters and how to use it. And then far out premiums, fairly straightforward here, which is by default, we use a far out factor, and we've now given you ability to not necessarily like to stop using it. And again, we'll chat about why that. Group level occupancies. If you're not familiar with groups, I would recommend attending PriceLabs' 201 training webinar. And I'll drop all of these links as Fausto's chatting on the call. I'll drop these links in the chat. But if you're using group level group in PriceLabs, you can now see occupancy percentages on group calendar, which can help you decide if you want to override certain dates in PriceLabs. And then finally, I went the other way around. And then finally, portfolio analytics. If you haven't checked out portfolio analytics, there's a lot of cool stuff going in portfolio analytics. But now what you can also do is you can set up certain preferences and then generate a PDF so that you can send it to your owners, or if you're working in a large company and you want to send it to your, like you're a revenue manager and want to send it to your owners or want to send it to your co-owners, you can generate that and send it out. Cool. With that, I'm going to stop sharing. Pedro, do you want to open up your PriceLabs account and walk us through the base price help tool?
Yeah, I have it pulled up. So let me know when you see it. Okay.
And Morgan, we're just going to get into the tool. I saw your comment about if we can move certain things, but yeah, we'll just see it in the tool. One step back, by the way, if anyone does not know how to access this tool, although fairly straightforward, you'll within your PriceLabs calendar, you'll see help me choose a base price, and you click that and it pops up.
Cool. Can you see it, Richie?
Yeah, I can.
All right, perfect. Yeah, like Richie was saying, like we're pretty excited about this update. We've had base price help for a little bit now, but we've released some significant updates here, right? So the biggest reasons why we decided to do these updates were twofold, right? One of them is that we want to give users more transparency about our recommendations, because we think there's at least a need to like be more transparent so that users have a little bit more control about the decision of accepting it or not. And the other one is on the market-based side, giving users a lot more options to customize how they think about their own market. So like Richie was saying, the recommended base price will come up here as a and in Rich's screenshot, it looks a little bit different, right? So depending on what kind of a base price you use, you might receive a base price recommendation as a number or as a percentage, right? So most users will see it as a number, like Richie had on the screenshot, but some users that have seasonal base price will see it as a percentage, like it's shown here. So if you're using a seasonal base price, you can think about it as if you have different base prices for every season. So that means that it doesn't make sense to recommend you a single number, right? But instead, we'll recommend a percentage. And for any user that gets a base price recommendation, what you'll see is this important list of reasons, which are the factors that we're considering to come up with a base price recommendation, and then an indication about what's the impact of this factor on the final base price recommendation. So it varies from 3 arrows down to 3 arrows up. The more arrows there are, the higher the importance. So in this case, for example, my listing is a demo listing, so it has 0 occupancy across the whole calendar, which means it's a very low occupancy listing historically. So because of that, I'm getting a very kind of a high impact to lower my base price. On the other hand, I think the bookings in this neighborhood are going down. So relative to the neighborhood, there is a little bit of a difference here. So there's a recommendation to increase base price because of that. But the overall impact is that I should decrease my base price by 7% because I'm not getting enough bookings and I'm performing not so well with respect to the market. The other interesting upgrade is on, like I was saying, is on the market-based section. So in the market-based section now, you get to see a map of all the listings that we're considering. And we give preferences to listings that are similarly sized to yours. So in my example here, I'm a 3-bedroom. So I'm going to see only listings for 2, 3, and 4-bedroom categories. And I get to select here if I want to consider them in this market-based calculation or not. So let's say I actually don't care about the 4-bedroom category. I'm just going to care about 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom. And they are the same here in the map. The other thing that's interesting here is that you get to select a market-based value level. So this is kind of outlined in words, but to give you the correspondence to the math behind it, you can think about it as low market level is kind of a budget listing. So it will lie around the 25th percentile of your neighborhood. The medium will be the median price for your neighborhood. So kind of, you can think about it as the average listing. And then the higher price listings will be in the 75th percentile. So in this case, let's say I want to do, I want to say my listing should be in the highest price listings in this area. And then the last filter, which is kind of interesting, is the geographical filter, right? So on top of already having some level of geographical filtering here that's done automatically by PriceLabs by distance, you can also really customize your area now. So for example, in Chicago here for this listing, there's this really nice neighborhood that's called Ukrainian Village, and I want to include it. So what you'll do is you'll select the lasso tool. You'll just select the area around Ukrainian Village here. I want to include the Loop area, which is another nice neighborhood in Chicago. And this is what I want to consider as my neighborhood. So you'll notice here that as soon as I save the area, this market-based price will change. And it will change with respect to this change that I've made. And so all of these changes get saved on your account too, on a listing level. So you can spend a little bit of time here playing with these filters, and next time you come back to the base price help tool, they'll be the same filters again. And if you're satisfied with this price, you can go ahead, like we can say, okay, I want the high price. So 318, if you're satisfied with this new base price, you can go and confirm base price. Otherwise, if you think that our settings here aren't doing it for you, or if you think you don't fall into either of these low, medium, or high category, maybe you're like a super high price listing, super luxury, you can go into the custom base price, enter your own custom base price here. So let's say 400. We'll still give you a plot of more or less how your prices will look depending on the season. And then you go and confirm base price to actually use the base price on your listing. And
Super
yeah.
cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
Pedro, do you have any regular property? I think this was maybe a little bit confusing. Do you have any property that does not have seasonal pricing?
I only have this one. Let me get another account. Okay. Or do you have a base price on your?
I do.
Right,
can you stop sharing? Let me pop it open.
Okay.
All right, let's see. 1 second. Let me throw it on the right screen here. And then I should be able to show this.
Yeah. Maybe I should cover also another case since while you pull this up, which is the case when listings are recently imported to PriceLabs. So like
Yeah.
Richie was saying, we calculate base prices based on your performance in PriceLabs, right? So for listings that are syncing prices, we look at what price or what base price you were looking, you're using, and then we look at the performance with that base price, and that's how the algorithm learns about the base price recommendation. So if you've just imported price or you're listing to PriceLabs, you can think about it as we don't know that much about your listing, right? We haven't seen how it reacts to different base prices. So for those cases, instead of using the smart logic, which it's useless in this case, we rely mostly on imported prices to PriceLabs, right? Which means that sometimes you might see some weird stuff, right? If you import prices into PriceLabs with bogus prices that you had on your listing, then the recommendation will also look a little weird. So in that case, we recommend using the market-based price instead, but just something to keep in mind. And we make it very clear that we're using imported prices. So instead of saying recommended there in the box, we say imported. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead, Richard.
No worries. Hey guys, quick ask for folks who are listening to this call. If you can use the Q&A box instead of the chat box, that would be super helpful. The chat box is a little bit difficult to go through versus Q&A. We can quickly see and respond to things. Pedro, can you confirm if you can see the my screen now, which has the property?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. So let's take some specific questions. Miriam is asking, I can't see that section. And I think by section, she means she can't see the recommended base price change, maybe a % or something, right? Talk to us about when does the recommended section show up versus someone else. I think I'm trying to find between which it is, but someone else was asking about they were seeing imported base price versus the recommended base price. Can you, I know you already touched on it, but talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, let me cover 4 cases then. All right, so first case, users who recently imported a listing to PriceLabs, right? So that one is brand new. And for those, we'll call that an imported base price because we don't know that much about the listing. It hasn't synced with PriceLabs yet. So for those listings, for the first 7 to 10 days, we're still collecting data. And then once we gain enough confidence in the data that we've collected, you'll start seeing recommended base price. But while we haven't gained that confidence, you'll see imported, which is not a smart logic. It's mostly using prices that you've imported to PriceLabs. Second
Very
case
cool. Okay.
Is recommended base price. So that's the most common case in PriceLabs. So that's for users who have used price in the past and have around 10 days of use time with PriceLabs. For those users, you'll see the recommended base price. That's the case for Richie. And then that recommended base price is kind of smart, right? So we're constantly learning about it. So as you use PriceLabs longer, that base price recommendation gets a little bit more reliable. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The next case is seasonal base price users. So that's the case that we were showing on my account, right? So that case, you will also not see recommended base price. Instead, what you'll see is a % change for recommended base price that will show in the text box and not as a selectable option. And the reason for that is that for seasonal base price users, you don't have a single base price that can be changed. You have to go in and manually change each of your seasonal base prices based on that factor that we suggested. The final case is for users who don't see a recommended base price at all and don't see even a percentage. And even if they've been using PriceLabs for a while. And that's a minority of users, but that can happen because our algorithm still has some limitations depending on what kind of booking pattern you have. So if you're getting mostly long lead time bookings and not that many short time bookings, we still have a bias towards short bookings. So our algorithm doesn't have a lot of confidence for those kinds of users. And then for those listings, you will not receive a recommended base price. It doesn't mean that you'll never receive a recommended base price. If you start getting more of the bookings that we consider useful for this algorithm, you'll start getting base price recommendation again. But that's also a case that we're trying to solve by upgrading our algorithm logic and making it better to cover more cases.
Got it. What's the limitation on, there are few people who are saying, Pedro, around, I am not seeing number of rooms, or I'm not seeing, number of rooms, or I'm not seeing What's this? Like the low, medium, high. When does that happen?
It might be that you have to select. So right now, for example, Richie is clicking on the recommended base price on the top of the screen. And in that case, you will not see any market based options. But if you click on the market based base price, that's when you'll see all these options. So that might be what's happening, because all users should see this menu as long as they are in the market based selection.
Got it. Super cool. Ryan, Dana, Ryan Sullivan, Dana, if that answers your question, do let me know. If that doesn't answer your question, we will drop us a note and we'll look into it, what's happening. Same with Bezier, I think. Okay, so is this tool not as valuable for brand new properties? I'm a brand new user. What do I do, Pedro?
Yeah, I think it is useful for a brand new user in two ways, right? One is, let's say you've been a long time user of Airbnb and you recently imported your listing to PriceLabs. The imported prices that you have in PriceLabs are representative of prices that you should have for your listing, right? And so for that case, the imported price that we recommend is a good starting point for your base price in PriceLabs. The other case is when you import prices to PriceLabs for a brand new listing that's never sold anything ever. And so whatever you have on your PMS is just kind of a guess. In that case, it's not the imported price is not that useful, but you can still use the market-based base price, right? Because that market-based base price has a lot of good information about how other listings in your area are priced. So for example, a common way of pricing a brand new listing is just selecting the number of bedroom categories that match your competition, and then using the median price, right? So that would be a very straightforward way of pricing a listing. But you can do a little bit more thinking about what kind of a market segment your listing falls in, and then choose to like price it against the low price listings or the high price listings. So it depends a little bit, but the market-based option is always a good option for users who imported their prices.
Super cool. Okay. How often should we be checking the base price?
So we recalculate your base price recommendation every 7 days. So that's checking more often than 7 days should not help. For users who have a good base price already that have been using PriceLabs for a long time, it might make sense to check it with even less frequency. Like I would say like every couple of weeks, it's totally fine. The base price in general shouldn't change a lot, right? Once you home into the correct base price, it should stay more or less fixed there unless there's a major like change in the market. So that's not the case if you're a new listing, right? Because maybe you set your base price too low and you're getting too booked. So if you're a new listing, check more often. If you're an older listing, then you've already figured out your base price. Don't have to check that often.
Got it. Super cool. Super cool. Is there any thought around adding more fields to this other than just bedrooms? And how are you thinking about that? This question around number of people that are staying or pools, or like there are a few questions around that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those become a little bit more complicated, right? We want to balance usability of the tool with how many options we show, but we do have interest in looking into what are the other things that have a big impact on price, right? That's what it really comes down to. So we have considered, and we will continue considering things like amenities, right? If you have a pool or not, if you're kid friendly or not, if you're by the beach or not. So we're looking into these things and evaluating what should go into the UI essentially. But yeah, I think that's a totally fair point. I mean, it all comes down to what's the best way to filter things that do have an impact on your base price or your base price. Yeah.
Cool. All right. A bunch of questions coming in. Didn't anticipate this many questions. We're going to answer these questions more one-on-one, and some of these look like questions that may need us to look at your account one-on-one anyway. Let me quickly see. Is there a way to review recommended pricing before adding PriceLabs to a listing? We're going to address some of these one-on-one. Looks like Ryan's still not seeing the map, so we're going to look into your account, Ryan, one-on-one. There's some questions around, maybe we should take this. Some questions around what's considered too booked, what's considered when you're recommending, and it says better booking trend, lower or too booked, or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, like the historical booking listing occupancy, it has to do with kind of some absolute thresholds that we have, but they're like they're on a curve, like kind of a yeah, it's hard to describe. They are it's if you're booked like 90% or something like that, you will be receiving like, well, we will recommend that you lower your base price. And if you're booked consistently at 20%, for example, we will also be considering, we will also be asking you to consider decreasing your base price. So in those extreme cases, you'll notice a large impact on historical occupancy. When you're closer to like 70, between 60 and 80%, the impact of this will not be that large. So if you're in those kind of middle numbers, your impact is not going to be that significant. It's mostly about the extreme value. So we want to make sure that we're correcting base prices that are obviously wrong, because it's really hard to like tell in the middle cases what's going on, right? Because there are other settings that you can use in PriceLabs, right? Base price is, I think, the most important factor that you can use in PriceLabs. But if your problem is related to booking window or certain booking patterns, then base price is not the tool for this, right? There are other tools. So we want to make sure that we capture the most extreme cases. So that's for absolute occupancy. The other one is relative occupancy, right? So while absolute occupancy is a good indicator, we also care about if your listing is underperforming or outperforming the market, right? So if your listing is getting booked, if your listing occupancy trends is going down, but the market is also going down, but even worse, maybe that's a major market shift, right? It has nothing to do with your listing in particular. So that still we wouldn't ding that a downward trend on your occupancy on your base price. So it's hard to talk about like thresholds here, because it really gets into the math and the algorithm, which is beyond the scope of this meeting. But just to keep in mind that those are the two really important things that we're looking at.
Super cool. Okay. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you for taking that many questions. We are going to address more of this. This is helpful for us to understand, guys, by the way. Completely understand that some of this can be confusing. Some of this can be not as clear, but taking questions from you also helps us understand even what to write better so that we can communicate better. We do a lot of math. We are very engineering heavy, but we can communicate better as to what essentially to communicate back. And Peter, point taken. We're going to improve on this. The next thing that I wanted to quickly touch on is two customizations. Number one that we have rolled out is around. Pedro, what do you see on my screen now? Can you?
Yeah, I see your customization.
Okay.
Model.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So two customizations that we have launched. Number one is. Wait, where did it go? Oh, demand. Yeah. So demand factor aggressiveness. What demand factor aggressiveness is we also have these nice little help articles that we're constantly writing to talk about this. But essentially, there is a standard PriceLabs algorithm that's always working, which is trying to maximize. But for any price that we are recommending, there are certain probabilities to book, and we're trying to be right, not too aggressive, not too conservative. But if you think we should be going, like if you don't think our recommendations are high enough, and if you want our recommendations to be higher, you can choose a setting to called as aggressive. This will push your prices to be higher, reduces the probability potentially of booking. If you think our prices fluctuate too much, you want to be a little bit on the conservative side, which makes sure you get a booking, not necessarily the most optimally, not necessarily the maximum price maximizing your booking, but definitely a booking, and usually higher than what you would have charged otherwise. That's kind of what we're trying to show here in this graph. There's an event that's happening. A conservative rate would put it at this kind of stuff. A recommended rate would be around the black, and an aggressive rate would be around this dotted red. And the way you would do it is you'd come into this, you'd click demand factor aggressiveness, turn it on. If you don't turn it on, it's always recommended. But if you turn it on, and you can choose conservative or aggressive. The other thing that we've rolled out is far out premiums. Far out premiums, Pedro, do you want to quickly touch on why do we use far out premiums?
Yeah. So we detect events in a few different ways, right? But one of the ways that we detect events is by looking at occupancy patterns. So if a night or a day, whatever, a night is getting booked a lot more than usual, right? If it has a really high occupancy and it's like 3 months out, for example, then we know, okay, this date here is going to be a really high demand date. Let's put a premium on it. But this strategy has a bit of a downfall, right? Which is if you're looking very far out on your calendar, no one's booked yet, right? And we have some ways of pricing for events that are far out. But one safeguard that we can put in is saying, well, really, when the date gets booked really far out, by default, let's apply a little bit of a premium on it. And the trade-off is, if you have a little bit of a premium far out, you're probably you might be overpriced a little bit in some nights, but as the date comes closer, we'll start seeing that occupancy come in, and then we'll be able to price with more certainty for that event. So, go ahead.
No, cool. No, finish your thought.
But the idea behind this customization is that some users, most users in PriceLabs or most dynamic pricing users have booking windows that are fine with the strategy, right? But for users that have very long booking windows, so if you're booking like 6 months out, you might not be well served by putting a far out premium, right? Because you still want to get booked really far out, and that's where most of your bookings are going to come from. So you don't want to wait for 6 months for PriceLabs to start getting better and better and the algorithm and the event detection side to price your listings. So what you do is for those users, you can disable your far out premium here and then price according to your far out occupancy, which is also fine.
Super cool. So just to paraphrase what what Pedro said, I don't know why I'm calling you Fausto today. What Pedro just said is, like far out, we're trying to maximize the price of each booking, right? So far out, we don't want to book too cheap. So we keep the prices high because we know close in, these properties are anyways going to get booked. If someone really wants to book your property a year in advance, we're adding a premium on top of it so that you get that premium, right? And the way you would see it in your account today is, for example, if I was to go to this property on 2023, if you see this black thing pop up, Pedro, do you see the black thing pop up or does it not show?
I do. No, I see it.
It shows. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6th line from bottom, there is something that says far out factor default, and it shows up as 20%. So that's where we're adding a 20% premium to the price. And that, Pedro, when does this start typically? Like how far out does it start and how does it apply?
It starts 30 days out and it applies a very gradual discount. So if you go like, let's go like 60 days out, for example, on your calendar, Richie.
On my calendar, 1 second. All right, my screen started hanging. Sorry.
It maxes out at 20% when it's
Okay.
very far out. Yeah.
Got it. Sorry, too many windows open.
Yeah, it goes between 0 and 20, but starting in 30 days.
Cool.
So it's very gradual. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, let me pop open one of these screens. Cool. And so if I was to go here in advanced customizations, I can essentially right now choose to turn the far out premium on or off. By default, we have it on. And if you go to this help article, which is right, not this one maybe. If you go to the far out premium help article, it will talk about by default, we apply 20% premium beyond 30 days up to, and after 270 days is flat 20% higher. But you can choose to turn it off if you really want to take far out bookings. If you want to customize this, attend our 201 webinar and look into occupancy-based adjustment, because in occupancy-based adjustment, then you can really start customizing this and doing a bunch of things here. In terms of saying, I want different premiums across different time periods, right? That's a little bit for a super advanced user. Next thing is on customizations. If you use our groups or accounts at group level, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. And then Pedro, if you can prepare a screen for portfolio analytics, and we can talk about portfolio analytics at your end. What we have done is at group level, a bunch of people use overrides at group level or do things at group level. Groups, again, if you're not familiar, click this link, how to use your page. You'd find these links across different places, or you'll find this question mark. And if you search for something in the question mark, hopefully you'll find a good answer to it using groups or et cetera, et cetera. But on the group calendar now, you will start seeing occupancy percentages for each day. Sometimes people like to manually override if their certain days are higher. Again, more for an advanced user who's trying to do certain strategies. If you're using PriceLabs with our recommended prices and with our min stay kind of stuff, you don't really need to use this. Next up, we want to quickly talk about portfolio analytics and what we have there. And then promise we'll spend 5 minutes trying to answer some of the questions. Lots of questions coming in here.
All right.
Pedro,
That's good.
you want to take over and talk about portfolio analytics?
Yeah, I have that screen ready. Okay. So I guess we're just talking about the PDF, right? That's the only new thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. So portfolio analytics, for people who don't know it, I think it's a great underused tool in PriceLabs. Really great way to see all your analytics for all of your listings. So I guess and the thing is, in PriceLabs, you have a lot of filters, right, on the portfolio analytics side. So you have these dates that people want to compare in different ways, and you have, I don't know, different listings that you want to use. So for example, you could use different groups here. But the new thing here is that some of our users use this to report internally, right, within their companies, or they also want to use this as a tool to report to their property owners, because you can kind of break down the properties by group. For example, you can select just listings for a property owner. And what we wanted to do is to kind of facilitate this standardized communication, right? So now, after you select the filters that you want to show in PriceLabs here, in this dashboard, you get to go here to the export PDF. This is open. It will show like this. You can click on preferences, give a title to your report. So like test report, enter description, test description. And then now you have a a group of preferences that will always show up once you generate a PDF. So with this now, you can always come back to portfolio analytics and use these same filters again to generate your report. So it's a lot more convenient to kind of generate the same report over and over again. So you don't have to, like, every time you come to portfolio analytics and you want to generate a PDF, you don't have to like reselect the filters again. So you can come here monthly, for example, and generate monthly reports to communicate internally. So that's it. That's the new update for this one.
Super cool. Thank you so much. What I've realized today is that we saved 30 minutes is too less. Maybe we should have saved more time. We're going to stick around and answer a few questions here, but if we haven't answered your questions as long as you've used the right name here, we're going to try to find your account in PriceLabs and try to answer. But if you can also shoot us an email at, and I'm going to drop this in the chat, which is support@pricelabs.co. That'll make sure we have answers to your specific question, but we'll try to get to your answers. Okay, Ben, you had the simplest question, how to find portfolio analytics, and then you found it. But portfolio analytics, you can find it in the navigation bar. Some users may not have it. It depends on what PMS you're using. For most PMSs, we are now able to get portfolio analytics, but for some we still can't. Super cool. All right. Where can you see how is the price calculated box? It does not show. Okay. Specific question. I'm going to get into it later. Later.
There's a question about the number of listings that's used in base price.
You want to pick that up? Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we look at about 300 listings for your base price help, and we give, like I was saying on the explanation, we give preferences to listings that are similarly sized, right? So it might go on a wider radius than your usual dynamic pricing because we're only looking at listings similar to yours. So,
super cool. A bunch of people mentioned that far out premium does not show up on their advanced customization. The reason why it does not show up is because it's access only. Drop us an email at support@pricelabs.co and we will enable it. We haven't enabled it by default for all the users right now, which is why. So I'm seeing Linda, someone anonymous, Jose has the same question. Maybe there are more people. Someone's mentioning compare against market in portfolio analytics stopped working. Roger, would be hard to find in your account with Roger. If you can drop us an email at support@pricelabs.co, that'll be helpful. Pedro, do you mind going from the top and see if there are questions that you want to answer?
yeah, for the compared to market, it's good to keep in mind that that function is only there if you are a active subscriber of market dashboards. So if your subscription to a market dashboard has expired, so like maybe you got a free credit, for example, when you imported listings to PriceLabs, after that subscription expires, you lose access to it and the portfolio analytics. So it's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of pulling data from there. So that's why it might be the case. But if that's not, please email us. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If any of if your screens look different from ours, it might be certain customizations are access only. So feel free to email us and we can enable certain customizations for you. If on the base price one, if your screen is looking different, it might be because you've just imported your listing or because you're using seasonal prices, right? And Pedro, you had a third one. What was the third one on base price? Why the screen could look different?
Yeah, there's a case for users who have booking patterns that don't qualify to a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah. Then they won't get a recommendation. Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. That's largely it, guys. We're once again sorry that we can't answer. There are far too many questions than we had imagined would come in here. I do want to say again, Michael, your question around far out premium. Far out premium is an access only. Drop us an email at support@pricelabs.co and we are going to enable it. And there's a question around on the PDF, is it possible to add your own logo rather than PriceLabs logo? I'm not sure if we can get rid of PriceLabs logo, but it's in our plan to give you the ability to be able to add your own logos. That's kind of in the plan. No commitment on when it will get done, but that's something that we understand why your company logo needs to be there.
In terms of like static customizations for that, when you put in on the preferences, when you put in a title and a description for the PDF, that shows up on the cover of the PDF. So you can maybe put your company name there if that's enough, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Fair enough. Cool. All right, Nancy, thank you so much for the praise on YouTube channel. We keep updating content there. If you're still on this webinar and if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go subscribe there. We keep adding stuff in there. Subscribe so that you can get notification on when we are adding something new. Yeah, we're going to wrap up this webinar now. Pedro, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining here. There might be more questions that I'll send your way
sounds good.
right after this webinar. But and as much as possible, if I can recognize your name, if it's unique, we will try to get back to you. But if you can just drop us an email at support@pricelabs.co, that'll make it a lot easier for us to get back to you. And then finally, this was recorded. This will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, so you can catch up on anything that you have missed. Cool. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye now.